Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Croydon Business webinar. It's our fourth week, and once again, we have pulled together a great lineup of panelists to speak to you this morning. This morning, we're talking about entrepreneurship. We're talking about how in these difficult times, businesses may have to think about changing the way that they've behaved. We are in the middle of the storm right at this moment, but we are at some point going to come out of the storm. And what we'll be talking about today is what advice our panelists can give about how you might need to rethink the strategies for your business, how you might need to pivot your business, how you might have to look at new opportunities for making your business work when we come out into the new normal, whenever that might be. So we're moving away slightly from the sort of the generic business support topics that we've been doing up to now and really starting to focus on what things might look like when we come out the other side. We've got lots of you watching today, which is fantastic. So hopefully we're going to have lots of interaction from you all. Before we get going, I'd like to just introduce you to our panel. We have, first of all, Mario Carrozzo, who is founder and group CEO of the Caridon group, who are based in Croydon. Mario has won Croydon Business Awards with us, and many of you will know Mario's story. Has had to go through quite a few changes and come through quite a few recessions and had to rethink his strategy on many occasions. We've also got Justin Owens with us. Justin Owens is Group Managing Director of the Silverleaf Group and has also been very active in entrepreneurship in Croydon, and he'll tell us more about that, and has won our Croydon Entrepreneur Award in the past. Chris Giddings is the founder and CEO of Uniquodo, based at Sussex Innovation in Croydon, very much at the front line at the moment of a technology business that's working alongside lots of companies, but a lot of travel companies are having to really work out their way forward. Also with us is Helena Jevons, who is from Sussex Innovation. She's the Group Marketing Manager, Sussex Innovation, based in Croydon, and Falmer down in Sussex, doing an awful lot and have been doing an awful lot even before COVID-19 to support entrepreneurship and innovation. And she'll be able to give us the insight into what Sussex Innovation can do in terms of help and support, and also talk about some of the companies that are based at Sussex Innovation. A face that's probably familiar to many people, Dexter Sims. Dexter Sims was our Businessman of the Year last year in the Croydon Business Awards, as well as being our entrepreneur. Dexter runs Muller Cake, which is nothing to do with cakes, but he can explain more about that, and we'll look forward to hearing his input. Dr. Juliana Topalzi, again, a very well-known face in Croydon. Juliana runs My Outspace, and is also, very importantly this morning, a lecturer at Kingston University on enterprise and innovation. So as you can see, we've got a stellar lineup, lots of people here waiting to answer your questions, give you help and a guidance. And supporting us all today is my fellow director, Joe Gunn, who will once again be taking the reins and asking those questions. So over to you, Joe.
Good morning, everybody. It's lovely to have so many attendees here today. We've got a great panel lined up. As you've heard, there's not just a number of former award winners and current award winners on our panel today, but we also have university lecturers in entrepreneurship and business advisors. I think a number of people here also work giving advice to businesses. I already have my new buzzword for the morning, which is the word pivot, as we are all learning a completely new normal. I would very much appreciate it if as many of our attendees as possible could ask questions, because you have a one-off opportunity to get advice from this particular panel. You've got a number of ways of doing that. First thing you can do is use our question and answer functionality on Zoom. Type your question in and I will put it to the panel for you. You can also wave a virtual hand at me so I can all see you on my little screen here. And if you wave a virtual hand at me, I will be able to unmute you and put your question directly live on air to the panel, which is a fantastic way of getting a bit more real life interaction with everybody. So just to kick off this morning, I'm going to go around each of our panelists and ask them that simple starter question for 10, which is to say, what impact has COVID-19 had on your business and how have you been able to adapt to it? And I'm going to start with Mario on the grounds that he, like us, has previous recession experience and the importance of pivoting is clearly critical under these circumstances. Mario, give us a chat about how it's affected your business.
Morning, everyone. Thank you. To be honest with you, I've been quite fortunate because I set my business up in a recession. So when you set up a business in a recession, you're at the worst kind of state in the business, so to speak. So it was quite recession proof at the time when I set it up. I'm fortunate enough that most of the people that work for me can work remotely. So I haven't had, it's not like, retail business where I'm facing customers and what have you. So in terms of retaining my staff, it's been great. Everyone's working from home. Where I haven't been able to have people that could obviously work from home, we are, offering support and advice virtually. So we've adapted in that kind of way, especially on the care side where we're providing support. So we're doing things like that on basic things like maintenance, which obviously if you're in construction or if you're in management, maintenance has been one issue. We've offered an online kind of virtual maintenance service where we're talking through scenarios with our tenants and landlords, what have you. So we're adapting in whichever way we can, basically. But it hasn't affected me in a negative way. I would say I've been one of the fortunate ones that out of all the sectors, it's thriving because obviously huge demand for housing. Unfortunately, a lot of people losing their jobs. So my business is actually growing, but I'm adapting quite easily, to be honest with you.
Thanks very much. It's lovely to hear that start of adaptation. I'm going to move to Catherine next because I remember us starting our business in the middle of a recession. And the first thing we had to do was homework for 3 weeks on the grounds we couldn't actually get to our office because everything had been shut down to the snow. 10 years on, we're now having to adapt again.
I was saying it feels like we've gone back to the beginning. Actually, we're literally having to rethink our whole strategy. We're an events business. 60% of our business was event based before this started. So we're having to really adapt very quickly to think about what our future business model is going to be like. And certainly, as a company that has and still has a really strong team, that's such an important part of our company. Adapting to being remotely away from them all has been quite challenging. We're lucky we're a team of creative thinkers, and there's been no end of social interactions, all sorts of weird and wonderful things that people have come up with to keep us all engaged. But certainly getting used to working from home is been interesting. I think one of the things that we've learnt is that actually you don't need to spend a lot of time and money and energy commuting across London, which we frequently were doing before this. Actually, all the meetings that we were travelling literally northwest East London for, we are now doing as easily and better actually via Zoom or Microsoft Teams. So I think we're learning, and certainly when we come out the other side, we'll be very different to where we were when we entered the storm.
Thank you very much. Chris, I'm going to go over to you because I'm aware that it might sound in principle that you've got a technology company that ought to benefit from COVID-19. But as discussed, a lot of your clients are in the travel industry. How have you been managing?
So we've seen, as a business, we're going to see probably a 30 or 40% step back in revenue coming in, which is significant for us. And a lot of our clients are big e-commerce, travel industry, travel operators, hotel chains, and obviously they're not getting any bookings right now. They're having to look at how they make their customers happy by either issuing credits and refunds and vouchers. And Unicodo, we provide some voucher technology. So you'd think actually on one hand that we could help some of those clients out, and we do. But on quite a few of them, they've just had to stop their marketing campaigns, which means they have a conversation with us, which is, we kind of don't need you right now because we're not doing any marketing. So we don't really need you to help us. Therefore, actually, we don't really want to pay you. So they're trying to sort of, we get quite a lot. We've had clients who have said, we don't want to pay for 3 months. We would like a contract holiday, a payment holiday. That nice contract we're about to sign with you to upgrade and use you even more. Can't really think about that right now. So that's 6 months, 9 months down the line. Yes, there's been a mixture of all of that from most of our travel industry clients. So it's that's been pretty tough. It's like stepping back 18 months. I think when we get out of this in a few months' time, our business will have stepped back 8 to 18 months, 12 months, 18 months ago as a business in the state that we are. But our kind of reaction to that really has been those clients that are really open to help and receiving help, we'll go all in on them and give them the help they need. So one of our travel operators really need to figure out the best way to provide credit note vouchers to their customers. So we've been helping them all the hours in the day to help them do that. And we've also kind of, anyone that's open to help, we've been helping. And then obviously those clients that are struggling and can't really do anything, we just have to have open conversations with them to try and work through making sure that we protect the cash flow in the business, making sure we're not spending too much money, and making sure we've got some revenue still coming in from those clients so that we can get through to fight another day, because we're seeing a lot of businesses pushing the problem on to their suppliers, and that's quite a common thing to see right now.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move on to Dexter now, because I think that your business might have been one of the most impacted by this.
Hi. It's funny enough that you say that, because I feel a little bit like, or should I say a lot like Mario, that I'm kind of used to feeling uncomfortable. You know, I'm kind of used to adapting to being in an environment where I'm not used to. As an entrepreneur, you know, we tend to have to do that a lot. Now, with my actual shop, which was at first a retail shop that recently converted into a community hub, the most thing that I've seen that's been affected, which I've actually wheeled back in, is the walk-in support that I was able to offer to my community, whether it be mini food banks, or whether it was one-to-one business advice, or whether it was just community help in a nutshell. But what's happened is I've had to learn to adapt all my life. So this, to me, hasn't really been a major adapting thing, because where I believe we are heading, which is into the digital world, I've been pushing my company towards that for the last year and a half. So as much as I've opened a community hub, because I know that the knife crime issue within our community was really bad, so I just wanted to have a go-to place or a safe haven for the youth in the community. That's kind of been taken care of for myself now, because everybody's locked in their houses. So I don't really have to worry about that side of things as much. But what I've now done is I've got very innovative, and I've pushed a lot of my sectors that was just getting ready to launch. I've pushed them forward now. So for instance, I've literally started writing my book, which is going to be an audio book. So I've started pushing myself more into digital assets. So I've started investing in a couple of stocks and shares. I've actually put my children's holiday club, which is very creative, online, which I actually run from Zoom. I do my one-to-one mentorinships and my entrepreneurial workshops on Zoom as well. And one of the most creative things I've actually come up with, which was going to be housed in the community hub, is our online radio platform. So it just so happens that launching our online radio platform fell into the right time and right place, that everybody has to be at their house and everybody has to be social distant. You know what I mean? But what I was explaining to one of my clients yesterday was that if you haven't noticed small factors in life that has been pushing us towards social distancing and pushing us towards online services a lot more, something as small as Xbox Live. I had this whole conversation with them yesterday that when I was a little bit younger, I used to leave school every single day and I have to go to my cousin's house, and we used to sit there and play computer for hours on end and do the same with my other friend. But in the recent years, when Xbox Live has been launched, if you was online and then your friend was to come to your house, you would look at him funny like, why are you here? Can't you go home so I can carry on playing online? Everyone's online. Like, why are you here in my house? So, you know, like being like this now, you know, I've kind of got my head around it a bit more. I think it's affecting a lot of people more because of the authority that you have to stay home. So just listening to those kind of things puts a fear inside of you and stuff. But without going too deep and speaking about all the changes that I've made, in a nutshell, I do feel quite comfortable with what's been going on. and happy that I'm able to have time now without so many walk-ins and so many different distractions, that I can wake up. I don't have to travel an hour and 15 minutes to get to my office. I don't have to travel back. You know, I don't have to see so many people, and I actually can concentrate a lot more now. So I am quite happy, kind of. You know, I don't want to pull it out there like I'm happy that this is happening, but in my shoes, I'm happy in the position that I'm actually in.
Thanks very much, Dexter. I think it's interesting that being able to use what was previously dead commuting time to rethink our businesses is actually quite a nice little bonus, and we look for all the good bonuses.
It's beautiful. You know, just to add into that quickly, is that I used to always say I want to eventually get a chauffeur, and I think a lot of people used to think, oh, you just want to live the high life and be a chauffeur. I said, no, that whole traveling time, I'm missing out on work. I could be putting in more work in the back rather than driving and causing all the problem and running the risk of losing my license being on the phone. So.
Thank you very much. Juliana, you're in a unique position because obviously you're both an entrepreneur in your own right, so you have your own business to worry about, but clearly that sort of entrepreneurial skill of being able to adapt really quickly is something presumably that you come across in your work as a lecturer or that you teach people.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been a very interesting but challenging time. So as a business owner, my motto always been, don't waste the opportunity of a crisis, because actually it's putting you in a shock, sort of put a shock in the system, and it make you wake up, your mind wakes up, because sometimes we take our businesses as granted. We go along with routine, we create the new clients, and we continue, get on. But actually, not very often when we sit down and step back and look at our business from a bit of an outside eye and say, okay, what else can we do? What else is out there we can address? And I think this time, yes, it's very challenging time, but it's that sort of a wake-up moment when you step back and thinking, okay, there is actually an opportunity there. So as a business, our main focus is providing actually face-to-face services to mompreneurs, to parents, a lot of women. And it creates a lot of challenge because a lot of them have children, young children, they have different personal circumstances. So when the situation kicks in, we thought, okay, the issue which family been facing is that there is a childcare, obviously an issue, school closing, so homeschooling and balancing the work or starting your own business. So there's a lot of new things coming in. We had to think very quickly and very, very creatively, and we did. As many panelists on this call, we created online services in terms of the training, support, networking meetings, but also we realized that parents had to have a hand in hand with the childcare. So for example, one thing we quickly introduced is the storytelling at the same time as the training. So the kids can go to the storytelling side or learning side, and the parents can actually get support from us as they need. So things like that had to be think very quickly on the foot to move forward. But it is, you know, any business success depends on how well companies actually respond to different situations and adapt. So I think that's just helped us to realize that, you know, it's a time to wake up. One other positive that I have seen, because we support lots of parents into work, but also self-employment. If before I had to run long campaigns and get engaged in the white papers and shout, you know, in number 10 that flexible working culture needs to be addressed more and more, we're finally having a very useful conversations in the companies where actually people can work very productively from home. They can connect and they can get things done and grow the companies. So as a one big positive, the whole situation would be is actually a different way of looking how we can work together and create the value for our customers. But of course, the other question is who the customers are, because the customers have changed.
Yeah, I think the way
I'll leave with that.
I'd absolutely love the don't waste a crisis. I think that's a fantastic piece of advice for everybody out there. Can I just move on to Justin now, because I'm aware you've probably had an impact on you. And I actually already have my first question for you from the audience, which is, how is the development market mood at present? So yeah, how are you feeling?
It's actually not been too bad for us as a business. I think we were very fortunate that we were due to start construction on a number of sites in sort of June, July time. So we were gearing up towards that start on site, and obviously this has put a hold on that. So we were fortunate that we hadn't actually started and we hadn't pressed the button on those, because at the moment, trying to construct on site is near on impossible. Whilst the government guidance is you can do it, practically speaking, we don't believe that to necessarily be the case without putting people at risk. So we wouldn't entertain it. But as a business generally, we learned quite a lot from the last recession, and that really taught us how to keep lean and nimble as a business. So make sure your overheads are sort of fairly lean, and that you have the ability and flexibility to change your business and adapt quite quickly. And in 2008, we were very quick to move to sort of reduce our overhead, to get rid of our offices and things like that, which we needed to do, and work much more in a digital-based, cloud-based way from home. And that really has stood us quite well in this particular scenario, albeit the circumstance and type of challenges we have are quite different. The basis of that has actually sort of stood us quite well in this. In terms of the question, it's surprising actually, because I think our industry is adapting quite well to this scenario that we're in, and general sentiment is reasonably positive. I think people realise that this is a temporary issue, it's a global issue, so it's very different to the previous recession, which was a massive liquidity issue. Like that challenge isn't necessarily there, albeit banks are pulling back in terms of lending. They are still lending, and they are much more supportive, I think, this time round than perhaps in 2008. So there isn't that fundamental liquidity issue. It's more the practical issues of building things out, and the timescales we don't know at this stage in terms of when that will be able to reopen and return to some normality. But generally, we're seeing house prices aren't changing. There's still actually, strangely, transactions are still happening. So people are now switching to virtual viewings. So they're buying properties that they've never actually stepped foot in, and they're just relying on video and Matterport kind of photo viewings. And I think that's testament to people generally, and how we're all adapting to this new way of life. And actually, most are embracing it rather than seeing it as this negative. We're just changing the way that we are in terms of our behaviours and the way that we see things. So that's an encouraging point, really. But generally, the market obviously is very quiet, but there is definitely still a willingness to get on. And I think once the restrictions are lifted, that we will see a lot of activity on that side.
Thanks very much, Justin. I like the concept that we are actually all looking forward with confidence. I know that we've got a couple of polls that we're running today, and one of those is about confidence, which we're tracking over time. So I'm going to put a call out. Yes, there we go, as if by magic. That poll has now started for all our attendees to say, just how confident are you about the future? I'm going to move over to Helena now, because I'm aware that buzzword pivot is critical in your case, because you have been looking at what companies are doing to adapt and take opportunity out of the new normal.
Yeah, it's been really interesting for us. I'll just talk briefly about our challenges. Our business model as Sussex Innovation is based on a combination of rent and business consultancy. So, we've got our own challenges, as everybody else has got, in terms of how we balance and reset those two things. But the most important things that we're seeing is we were working with clients on a much more strategic basis historically. And of course, then all of that's gone up in the air, and people have got many more short-term immediate business needs at the moment. So we went into how do we rejig as Sussex Innovation and get our team home working, and then share what's worked and what hasn't worked from our proof of concept, if you like, with our members to help them be able to get their teams working effectively online at home. We went from pivoting from helping people, think about how they're going to strategically niche their software business for a much bigger specific target market, to helping them pivot to create an app to help food businesses get food to the people who most need it. We went from trying to focus on driving ourselves some bigger commercial clients to completely pivoting to assist people who were working on food banks, to getting food to the homeless, to getting, you know, all the very, very immediate basic survival needs is where we pivoted to in the first couple of weeks of the crisis, because they were the really, really immediate needs in the parts of society that were disadvantaged and didn't have access to the kind of skills and abilities. And we're now sort of coming out of putting those platforms in place to be able to assist people in a bit more strategic way as a bit of the new normal is emerging, although nobody yet knows exactly where this is going to settle. We're tracking trends, what's happening globally in terms of what are people doing, how are people responding. We've got the classic, big mainstream media examples of gin makers who've pivoted into hand sanitizer, with all the just extraordinary challenges that involves. You know, a lot of my background is in food manufacturing, and to pivot a whole, even if it's a small production line, and licensing and sign-offs and trading standards and all the things that are actually involved with moving a physical product from being a gin to being a hand sanitizer in a matter of weeks, is just extraordinary. And so we're also trying to, of course, support people with the emotions they're feeling of the challenges of businesses that they've got, that they may have, spent years building and are now having, in some cases, extreme difficulty with that, with saying, okay, where's the opportunity? And that's something that we do with our businesses as well, is we really help them say, okay, the consumer is changing, as Juliana said. What does that consumer now want? What is their pain point at the moment? And how can you serve that new pain point? And how can you communicate to that new pain point? And how can you deliver to that new pain point? So that's my brief summary. But the other thing that we've also done is we've pivoted a lot of our products, which used to be very strategic task forces or very strategic pieces of work, to be available to people in really simple 12-hour blocks of, in many cases, funded activity. So if there are people out there who want some help at the moment, we've got these chunks of money where we can help people. And Julie's kindly invited me to post some links, so I'll do that. The other thing I think that's really important too is this acceleration of the trends we were seeing in any case towards digitization, which Dexter's alluded to. And yes, of course, those trends that we were seeing have just exponentially gone off the rails. You know, I can't remember what the market value now is of Zoom, but it's just extraordinary. And I'll post the links on that. So we have businesses who were expecting to immediately thrive from this crisis, who specialised in digital classrooms, for example, who everybody suddenly went to Zoom, exams got cancelled, that market didn't shape up in the way that they might have initially thought it would shape up. But now schools are realising it's longer term and they're needing to digitise content online. Those businesses are coming back again. So it's actually the unpredictability of how those things are going to play out that's really interesting as well, and just navigating that on almost a daily basis.
Thanks very much. I'm aware you're also doing a white paper on pivoting. Is that working?
Yeah. So one of the things that we're really keen to do for the business community within our area is to look at what are the macro trends that are going on globally for businesses and for consumers, and how is this playing out differently in different cultures. Where do we think it's likely to settle, and how are businesses responding to it? You know, and therefore, what services and products do we need to be creating, not only to get people through this, and we're having people come to us going, you know, how do I do my lighting and my videoing well to look professional on video? So it's like, right, well, we need to create a course on that then. Let's do that next week. You know, how do I do this? So we'll be being very responsive to demand. But when people come back to that workplace, whatever that looks like, people are going to need support on a personal level and on a business level with reacclimatizing to that, as you've called it. That's my new phrase for the morning, Joe, is the new normal. But, you know, taking people back through that transition, as we've had to be mindful of people's well-being going through this transition, is also going to be a big part of that. And I'd also say that although we like to think of ourselves as, you know, really, really top-notch business consultants that can really help businesses grow, a lot of what we've been doing has been supporting the community and giving them touching points. So we're holding a cheese and wine on Friday, where everybody's going to bring their own choice of wine and their own cheese. And we're all going to have breakout chat groups. We're having a virtual pub every Friday at 4. We're having Ask Me Anything questions, where people can come and ask anything from how are you managing to have the kids at home to what are the latest business grants. We're having, and the thing that's come out really clearly about our community, which has been so interesting in terms of what you learn about people as people in this kind of situation is our cohort loves a quiz. So one of the things we're doing at the moment, which we could never have foretold, is, oh my God, we've got a community of quizzers. Let's get some quizzes out there, because that's what's going to keep people together. So it's interesting.
I think it's great that people are finding new ways of managing social interaction. And yes, I'm doing a lot of quizzes that I never previously did before. I've had a really good question come in, which actually relates a lot back to that opportunity that we're talking about. And it's, what are our thoughts in regarding to start a new business in the current climate? Is that utter madness? Well, Catherine and I started our business in the last recession, and everybody said we were mad. But I personally think a recession is a fantastic time to start a business. Partly because a lot of the things that you need to acquire are quite cheap. There are lots of people out there with really good entrepreneurial skills that are available. And I think, you know, we benefited enormously from being able to recruit highly skilled staff very early on, who we've been able to keep throughout the lifetime of our business. Can I ask if anyone else would like to wave at me to come in on that? Is it madness to start a business now, or is it the best time because you're in a good position to seize the opportunity? Justin, you gave me a wave. Come in on this one.
I think it's a great time to do it, to be honest. It's, you know, as with any downturn, it creates opportunity if you're in the right place. And, you know, to try and start a business when things are going great, you're in a very crowded market, you're in a very difficult market to try and break into, because there's lots of people that are already successful in that place. So if you're able to start now in the downturn and, as you say, reap the benefit of perhaps lower cost base, a wider choice of staff, an opportunity to build relationships with people who have more time and are more open to receiving communication from you, this is a great time to do that. And then as the upward trend comes back, when we come to the other side of this situation, you'll be in a great position to then take full advantage of that moving forward. So if you can get your foundations and position yourself correctly now, you'd be in a great position to then take advantage.
Totally agree. I think that if you can survive in the difficult times, it puts you in a fantastic position to understand the basics that will enable you to survive in the good times. Dexter, you wanted to come in on this?
Yeah, I'll just add to it a little bit, is that when chaos is usually happening, you can always find opportunity. And I believe that as an entrepreneur, you thrive off times like this, because in times like this, you get to kind of have an even playing field with total giants. You know, sometimes I speak about doing a collaboration with Muller Yogurt, or sometimes I speak about doing a collaboration with Haribo, and people around me seem to think that I'm thinking like so huge. But in times like this, Haribo and I don't know, Muller Yogurt, they might be losing business. So it's kind of good for them to start thinking outside the box for certain collaborations. So for a small business like myself, it might be a great time for me to, you know, pounce on opportunities of collaborations and stuff. So I feel like, to answer the question of the gentleman or the person who asks, is that in this time, there's loads of opportunities. If we're not burying our head in the sand in regards to, oh, this is all crazy, start popping your head and looking around a little bit more, and an opportunity will pop out to you.
Thanks very much, Dexter. I noticed that Helena has just put a little message up that says you've coined a new buzz phrase for me, which is furloughization, whatever.
That one, yeah, I've been unmuted. Yeah, what we're just saying, you know, we just started asking the question, you know, if you've been furloughed, what are you doing? Just because we were interested, really. And, you know, people have got time, so they're exploring and just having that time to be either bored and creative, which is sort of one generator of new ideas, or stressed out and creative, which is another time that you suddenly need to, you know, necessity is the mother of invention, and you need to innovate because the pressure's high. So on both those extremes, we're seeing, you know, just all sorts of things. I mean, there's another question in here, which is in terms of what is the business support that's available at the moment. One of the tricky issues that we've been navigating clients through have been these constantly changing terminology, requirements and regulations around around furloughing and what you can and can't do while you're on furlough, which started off being all you can do is volunteer, but it's moving by the day. So yeah, it's quite interesting. So in response to that question, furloughing is also something we're keeping an eye out on. So we've actually got a webinar on that in a couple of weeks' time. In terms of the trends we're seeing there. But in terms of the business support question here, we've also got a daily update that we do. I'll post the link to that. Who was it who asked the question about business support? Raj, I can't see your whole name, sorry, Raj. But in terms of all the business support that's available, do you guys at Croydon have a link to everything in one place, or do you want me to post our link? Okay, I won't post our link then.
Catherine, yeah. Catherine, do you want to come in on that one?
No, I was just going to say, I mean, I think it's amazing. There's loads of, there is lots of support out there. It is complicated. There's a number of places that people can go to get more information. I was going to give a shout out to the London Growth Hub and the advisors that are there. There is, you know, an opportunity to have a one-to-one conversation with an advisor that can, you know, can actually talk through your individual needs. That's based at Sussex Innovation as well. And that is a telephone service, so anyone that wants that advice is out there. And I'm just going to give a shout out to some of the previous webinars that we've done that are on our YouTube channel, that do you can go and have a look at, that do talk in quite some detail about the type of support that's out there. I just wanted to also just pick up on that question about, you know, is it a good time to start a business in a recession? I think my take on that is it's a great time, because actually running your own business and being an entrepreneur is never easy. So if you think that starting your own business is going to be easy, it isn't. And actually it doesn't often, in my experience, get any easier. So we're 10 years old. You know, we've had a 10-year journey, which has been, you know, an up and down journey, constantly having to rethink who we are, what we're doing, are we doing the right thing? I think if you can start your business back at when there is a recession, as we did, it just gives you a really good grounding for just realizing it's not going to be easy. And you know, you're going to have to work really hard to make sure that you make money and make profit, which ultimately is what we're all in business for, and that isn't a given. So you know, I think it's a great grounding, and if you can make your business work in a recession, then you know, hopefully we'll all get our rewards at some point in the future.
Thanks very much. Chris, you wanted to come in as well. Do you want to come in on this one?
Yeah, I was just going to add that now is the perfect opportunity to think about how you can take your existing business and look at the assets that you have and go, how can we use this for good right now? But how can we hedge our bets as a business and add another string to our bow? And I think that's what we've tried to, the way I've tried to look at it for Unicodo. And we've kind of created because we're creating vouchers for our B2B clients, our big travel operator clients. They're not using that voucher technology that much now. So we've kind of taken that voucher technology and gone, how can we give it in a really, really cost-effective way to small businesses, independent businesses that aren't trading right now? So we created localsupportvouchers.com, bit of a plug, going live on Monday, and it allows businesses to sell vouchers for kind of pretty much any value, so they can get the money now, get the cash in now, and then give the voucher back, or the voucher can then be used in a few months' time when they're open and trading again. So we kind of adapted and tried to take the business in a new direction to try and hedge our bets and try and make it as most possible that we're going to get out of this situation in a positive way as a business.
Thanks very much. I'm going to move down to Juliana now, because I mean, we are probably examples of the last recession's version of furloughation, as a lot of white label came out of the redundancies that took place during the last recession. And I was always extremely heavily influenced by attending some really good talks by entrepreneurs when I was sort of starting out in business about the importance of being able to adapt quickly to changing circumstances. Juliana, what's your view on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started the business when I was forced to quit my job. I had everything was perfect in my life. I had a full-time job and I was building my career. But overnight, when I gave birth to my daughter, I had to make a very difficult choices. So necessity, as Helena said, is the mother of invention. You're suddenly in a shock situation when you have to think differently and thinking, okay, what are opportunities? What is missing out there? What is actually the world needs, the customer potential needs, and see what competences, expertise, and knowledge and networks around you have to be able to address those needs. And that's the core of any business. But coming back to those two questions, actually, which have been addressed by a few panelists in the last few minutes. Yes, it's definitely a good time to start a business, but also from resources point of view, things might be cheaper, yes, but also what happens within the funding world, where before, big joints like Innovate UK or UK Research Innovation will provide only huge grants to larger corporations or research institutions. Now the government is pushing more towards early stage businesses, startups, what innovation. So the teams who adapt really quickly, have a lot of talent and see the need in the community right there and now, which can address the situation. So there is a lot of money out there actually for applying and looking at how you can use the research and development initially in your business to be able to maximize your opportunity. So, yes, it's difficult times, but it is an opportunity. But you've got to do your research, you've got to look around, and you've got to be focused and see, okay, what actually I can do and how I can apply what I know, what I see, what potential customers see, and then put it all together.
Thank you. I've got a really good question that's come in, which is talking about the difference in markets going forward. So I think we're all aware that people have actually become more local, more community focused as part of the changes and the isolation that is taking place. We're all using small local shops rather than shopping in big supermarkets. We're all home working, so we're more likely to use our local traders. So I've got a lovely question here from Maddie Duxbury that says, with selling to the global market potentially being harder in the future, should businesses be focusing more on local markets? Who would like to come in on answering that one for me? Give me a hand. Mario, I haven't heard from you for a while. I'm gonna bring you in to say, should businesses be thinking more about local than global?
It's difficult to say, really. If your business is scalable, then why not look globally? I just wanted to add, just from the last part of the conversation, that I've got quite a good view of business overall because I'm involved in quite a few different sectors. So from property side to management side, from helping people from food banks, and I'm also a landlord to over 100 businesses. So I get to hear and speak to different businesses from IT to ice cream factories, you name it, every day with their problems. So I get a good overview every day of what's going on. And I think one thing is very important is leading by example. And we're all talking about opportunities and business, but I think that with myself, I'm always encouraging the team to come up with new ideas. That's very, very important because that's half the problem. At the moment, we're all in the same situation, and unless you can work with your team and you allow them to kind of open the opportunities that are there, because there's problems across the board at the moment, right? And I'm working closely with all the team to try and find out where all the problems are. Allow them to speak, empower them, and then you'll find the solutions. That's very, very important. And if I show fear, then it's going to go across the team. So you have to be confident. You have to be focusing a small part of your day on the problems, because of course we're all firefighting, but you have to be spending most of the time looking at opportunities. And I think that is very, very important. Very, very important. If you don't do that, then no one's going to come out of this situation. So I'm always spending my time, and I've sent a document around to my whole team, over 100 staff, and I said, like a little record, a notebook, every time there's a problem, write it down. And I want to share it around the whole business, and let's try and find a solution. So what I'm trying to do is encourage everyone to highlight the problems, but come up with ideas all the time. And from there, opportunities come. Just to give you one example, a huge issue with universal credit at the moment. Countries inundated with people that are having issues with universal credit. So I'm creating an app with AI which will streamline universal credit online, because a lot of the forms are very manual, and as one example, working with DWP on that. So I'm looking at where the problems are, but I need the team's support and people around me to try and fulfill the problems and resolve the issues. So I think that we haven't mentioned much about that. It's very important to work with the people that are around you to get their support to try and resolve a lot of these problems, really.
Thanks very much. I mean, I think it is relating quite well to a question that's come in, which is you need your team and you need your team's ideas. But what's that balance between guys who are on furlough and have time to think of really good ideas for your business, but aren't supposed to be helping you, although strangely enough, they are able to go off and help somebody else? If people would like to think about that little challenge for a moment, I'm just going to go down to Helena, because I know she wants to talk about the globalization v localization issue.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, isn't it? It's almost like I think there's a polarization happening of people who are pragmatically realizing that to get something delivered at the moment, maybe their only choice to do that is Amazon, and they wouldn't have necessarily done that unless they were in this situation, versus people really wanting to retrench, to going to their local butchers, supporting their local greengrocers. You know, we're doing a lot of work with businesses who may have sold from their shops, whether they're pubs or greengrocers or butchers or restaurants, who are now needing to swing into home delivery very, very quickly. So I think two things are happening. You know, if you're an app developer and you've happened to use this time because you were passionate about developing an app that allowed local community businesses in your area or your region to deliver food at this specific time, then that served an immediate community need. But ultimately, the App Store is still going to be a global thing. Amazon's still going to be a global thing. Those platforms are benefiting in a different way, as the small businesses are actually strangely benefiting, although they're having to understand and work into their cost models the on cost of delivering to the consumer rather than having people come to their shop. So, you know, in terms of actually managing that in a profitable, sustainable way, it's going to be interesting to see at the end of this, in the new normal, what of those new behaviours that are forming as consumers and as communities are going to stick, and which behaviours aren't going to stick. And I think I saw somewhere this morning that it takes 3 weeks to form a new behaviour. So the question was, you know, we're kind of now just over that amount of time into this crisis, and we're all observing in ourselves and our teams how our behaviours are needing to change to cope with this on an emotional, a mental, a practical, a financial level. And is that going to stick? Or 3 weeks after we're back at the office, are we going to go back to how it was? You know, and that's going to be our choice ultimately, isn't it?
Yeah. Thanks very much. Catherine, you wanted to come in on that challenge of being able to get that innovation out of the team. Well, technically, they aren't really supposed to be working for you.
So a couple of things really. We, I think it was last week or the week before, just to say the person who's asked the questions has talked about training and learning. You are allowed to do training and learning whilst you're furloughed, and there are many schemes out there. We had the lady from Strive Training on our webinar last week, and she was able to point people to lots of free courses that are being made available to people. So while they're furloughed, a great time to upskill or learn a new skill. And I was going to say that I don't think anybody can stop anybody being sat at home thinking entrepreneurially about the future of the business that they work for. Sitting down and writing down some ideas that you might have about how, when you get back to the business, you might do things differently, or how you might want to actually input into taking the business into a different direction. I don't think anybody, correct me if I'm wrong, could say that you could stop somebody doing that. That's what I would encourage people to do. It's not actually working for the business, generating sales now. It's using your time to think. And actually, one thing that this has given many people is some time to think. We're out of that routine of being in a very pressurized environment, having to get from A to B to B to C, and actually taking some time out to think about your business. And if you're an employee furloughed, taking some time out to think about the business that you work for, and how when you come back you might be able to input in a different way with some more creative ideas. I don't think anybody can stop you doing that whilst at home, so I'd encourage that.
Thank you very much. I've actually also got a shout out from one of our former panellists, Helen Colchin from HR department, which is there carrying out a survey at the moment to try to lobby the government about whether furloughing could be made more flexible, because it is, I appreciate challenges for businesses that want to keep staff engaged, and from a social perspective how much nicer it is to still have the team engaged, but also don't want to fall foul of the rules that they aren't supposed to even do any work at all for the company. Moving on, I've got a lovely question here which says, for everybody on, what was the catalyst that made each of our entrepreneurs here start the business? Do you remember the day, the time that made you kickstart your life into the kind of entrepreneurial life where you replace certainty with day-to-day uncertainty and the day-to-day requirement to adapt and flex? Are you just that kind of person, or was there something that triggered it? Who would like to come in on that one? Give me a wave, somebody. Chris.
I think what triggered it for me was warm and comfortable shoes, and just being very comfortable in those shoes, and actually knowing that it. I kind of wanted to change, and but those shoes are quite hard to to get out of because they're nice and comfortable. So I was working for a company for 10 years, and kind of always been a little bit entrepreneurial. Had some little projects on the side. And just saw a challenge, saw a problem in the industry, and thought I have the skills, I have some experience, I could probably tackle it. I'm not going to go any further in the organisation I was in. Why don't I just try and step out of it and give something new a go? And but it's just having a bit of time to be able to do that, and time normally means a little bit of resource, so money. And I had a few months of time to give something a go, see if we can get some traction. See if we can potentially get some investment on board, and time and money gave us a little bit of time to give something a go. But it was that wanting to try something new, something different, and wanting to get out of the full-time employment that I was in.
Fantastic. I think that having that time to think and try something new is really important. Justin, what was it kickstarted you?
I think I've probably always had it in my DNA to a certain extent, because I think my first business was when I was 13. I set up a joke shop at school, which then progressed into a full-blown tuck shop, which I used to take in every day, and made the royal sum of about £11 a day at school. So that was my sort of foundation. And then I also used to do car boot sales at the weekends. And a lot of that was driven by personal circumstance and basically the need to make some money. But it was a great foundation to kind of start me off, really, because it taught me so much. So I left school at 16, went to work for a couple of years, didn't really enjoy working for other people, and got made redundant a couple of times as well. So it just encouraged me to take the leap, and my father and mother always encouraged me to sort of follow what I felt was right. So I started my first business when I was 18, which was in music and events, which I did for 9 years. And then my father sort of encouraged me to get into property as well, which is what he did at the time. And at first I sort of didn't really have a great deal of interest in property. It all sounded quite boring and uninteresting. But as I got older and a bit wiser, I realised that probably it was a good career path to follow. So I started Silverleaf with him 17 years ago, or 17 and a half years ago now. And here we are. So I've always, I guess, pretty much most of my life had that sort of entrepreneurial mindset and work for myself. And I'm very glad that I had that encouragement and support behind me to do that and to follow that path.
Thanks very much. I know that personally I was inspired by the fact that I was made redundant following a period of paternity leave and had a sudden urgent requirement to use my skills to pay the rent. Dexter, I got the general impression that you're in this because this is just your personality. Is that fair?
Well, that's very fair to say. I mean, I feel like I've been an entrepreneur all my life. It starts with a burning sensation inside your stomach that you just have to do different. You have to do better. I mean, I've come from a difficult background with both of my parents being on A-class drugs most of my life, and watching my so-called role models not achieve, in my eyes, success in terms of maybe a steady income or maybe ownership or maybe savings. Seeing those things and growing up in that kind of environment made me always want to do better. It made me always want to achieve more. So I've actually literally only had one job in my whole life, which was a football coach. And after I passed my FA coaching badge, level 2, and I was working for Fulham, after a month's time, I noticed that, you know, they was just hiring the park, they was paying their coaches, the parents was paying, and they was getting the money on top. So I thought straight away, I can do something like this, you know what I mean? So after, you know, trying to do my own classes in the park, I then launched an after school club. And then I started doing raves, which parties and stuff. Then I started doing events, because after I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I had a different mentality on I could make money from anything that I love. And at the time, I loved cars, I loved, you know, we loved raving, we loved sports. So in all those sectors, I decided just to make businesses out of them, which wasn't to me business, it was just an income, so I don't have to work. And then it eventually grew into, okay, you can make money off a lot of stuff, that's great, but can you make consistent income? Can you make enough money to reinvest? And that's when I started to study business more and more. But, you know, in terms of, was I born with it and stuff, you know, it's just been a fire in my belly from a very, very young age. From when I was washing cars at the traffic lights or doing penny for the guy at the petrol station. So, yeah, you know, I've come from a very harsh background of having to make a change.
I think that's great. And I love that concept that actually you can find opportunity doing something that you love. I've got two other entrepreneurs just ask that same question to you before we move on. Mario, what was it that kickstarted you into the entrepreneurial world?
I mean, I suppose it's a bit similar to Justin and Dexter in a funny sort of way. So I started very young. You know, I was working from the age of 8 in a restaurant trade, and was brought up in quite a rough area, gangs and all the rest of it. Bought my first business and property when I was 18. So I believe the hunger in the belly. You know, I left home quite young. You know, when you've got no food in the fridge, you have to go out there and you know, fend for yourself. So I was very responsible from a very young age, bills, mortgages from 18, which most people didn't have until like 10 years later on. So that's the first step. I think it was never about money. It was always ambition. I love to see things. Anything I did, I wanted to be able to scale it. So whatever it was, if it was 1, I wanted to make it 10 or 100. And because I never really followed any rules as such, I went to school, left with X amount of GCSEs, but I never followed any rules. I had no limitations or no fear. So where most people would do things by the book, so to speak, and say, oh, you have to follow this, I didn't have any rules as such. So I was just, you know, if I made a mistake, I learned from it and keep going. So part of it was kind of no rules, and I mean, hunger, and then seeing that growth. So from the first property, I knew that if I could do 1, I could do 10, I could do 1,000. And everything that I did in every business, I never limited myself to, you know, thinking that I couldn't achieve it. And I think the secret of being an entrepreneur, I would say, is knowing where you're strong, knowing where you're weak. Where you're weak, you get other people to help you. And you've got to put aside your ego, because a lot of people, you know, if you're too smart, you think that you know better than everyone else. And I'm always the opposite. I always want to learn from other people. Where I'm weak, get help and take risks, because, you know, I've only been successful because I've made quite a few mistakes. I lost a fair bit of money. I'm not embarrassed to say that, but I'll always take opportunity and take a chance. Where a lot of people, they're scared, you know, they'd rather sit in their comfortable position, and that's fair enough, not for everybody. For me, I've always wanted to take a chance in life, and that's very, very important. You've got to want to take a chance, make a few mistakes, learn from them, and go again. But it's times like this, it really shows. People talk about entrepreneurs and all the rest of it. It's times like this when you see if you're really an entrepreneur, if you can come out of this, you know, from the other side, because a lot of people get into businesses which just expand in the way the market is. But when you're in this type of business, you'll know if you're an entrepreneur or not in reality. That's what I believe.
Thanks very much. I do have a personal theory that entrepreneurs are natural rule breakers or rebels. I believe the technical business term from that is business disruptor, which is the politically correct way of phrasing it. And it is important that you have the kind of mindset where you learn from your mistakes, because if you don't make a mistake and you don't try, you're never going to go anywhere. Juliana, would you like to finish us off with the answers on that particular question about what was it that drove you?
Yeah, absolutely. Just building very quickly on Maria's point, my students always asking, okay, Juliana, tell me what book should I read and get a perfect formula, when there isn't perfect formula and there isn't perfect book, because by the time the book will be published, the whole world will change. So it's constantly adapting. My entrepreneurial journey started when I was 12, when I was working for my family business. When I came to the UK, I was selling the jewelry, handmade jewelry in Portobello market. So I'm constantly looking for ways to make a bit of an income, but also explore different opportunities. But my Outspace social enterprise, which I started over 9 years ago, it was actually from uncertainty to uncertainty. So when people saying, the question was, from sort of uncertainty to something more certain, well, actually, business world is not certain, and you've got to be robust and you've got to be prepared for uncertainty. So I was kind of forced from the necessity. I worked for a larger corporation, gave birth to my daughter, and my employer couldn't understand my needs at all. So flexible working was on the table, and I basically was forced to leave the job in a very short time. And that situation actually opened my eyes to see, okay, what is out there, what's happening. And when I realized there's a huge amount of parents like myself hiding behind their bedrooms with a huge amount of talent and skills and knowledge, I realized there is an opportunity to bring them up together, to raise their confidence and actually showcase the talent they have to the world of entrepreneurship. So that's what drove me. But what make my day is when I help somebody, they become financially sustainable family. That would make me a happy person. So I always have to be driven by someone else's success, if that makes sense. So when I help somebody to make success, that makes me happy.
I think that's excellent. I've actually got a lady, Anne Miller, I think, who would like to actually ask a question which is related to this. Anne, I'm just going to let you come in. Do you want to ask that question directly to your panel? Anne, are you with me?
I am. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Yes. Morning. I was just saying, the entrepreneurial, I guess, question or argument, it goes down to the old nature or nurture one. So I personally believe that entrepreneurs, it's basically, I think it's deep seated in you from a very, very early age, and you know it. And listening to all of you, it's very, very interesting that you've all felt that from a very, very young age as well.
Thanks very much. I think we're running out of time, so I'm just going to go around our panel and say, just got quick time. Could you just give one big tip to all those potential entrepreneurs out there who are going to find that this change in our circumstance is going to encourage them to think differently and seize new opportunities? Helena, would you like to give us your top tip for this?
I knew you were going to come to me first. I just knew it. My top tip would be the same as my top tip would be in normal circumstances, actually, which is find a pain point that you can serve. And that might be a different pain point than you've historically served. But if you can identify what people need in this business that you can serve, do that.
Thanks very much. Moving on, Juliana, what's your top tip for us?
I think I'll say stay positive and think quickly, because nowadays, you might think an opportunity, you'll say, okay, I'll do something, 6 months down the line, it might be gone. You've got to learn how to make a quick decision, but stay positive.
Thanks very much. Dexter, what's your top tip for everybody out there, our potential entrepreneurs listening in?
My one would be, don't be afraid of change. Embrace change. If it means packing up your current business and launching a whole new business, then do it, because we are living in time of change right now. So you must absorb it and push it straight back out there.
Thanks very much. Justin, what's your top tip for us all?
I think remember, this situation is only temporary. It's not forever. So there will be a positive side when we come out of this. And just remain agile and as Dexter said, positive. Because if you can survive this period, which hopefully is relatively short, there will be a lot of opportunity for everyone to take advantage of when we come out the other side.
Thanks very much. Mario?
I'll just say, just focusing your time. Again, it's very important. If you spend all your day just worrying, fighting fires, that's all you're going to achieve. So, balance the time that you're spending, what you've got to do fighting fires, but focus that time in actually looking for opportunities, and you'll find something that will come out of it. And once you get that little trigger, that little spark, your world will change. But it's when your chips are down, you think there's no spark. Once you get that little spark and then you go full throttle, then you'll find a way out.
Thanks very much. And Chris?
I'd say look at the opportunity in what you have already to adapt it, to take it to a new place that solves some real business problems, real big issues that people are facing right now, and try and take what you do and adapt and take it forward and solve some real life issues.
Thanks very much. Well, I'm going to just finish this particular roundup with one from me, which is, I think business is all about people, and it's partly about people on the customer end, so thinking about that pain point, how you can help your customers, and it's also about the people who work for and with you and who partner with you, and taking care of them and remembering that we're a business community is also really important. We've had some great comments from all the panelists today. This will be available later. There's loads of stuff on the chat, which has got some absolutely great advice and pointers and other information, which we'll send around afterwards. But we are slightly over time, so I shall hand back to Catherine to conclude us for the day.
Great, thank you, Jo. Well, a huge thank you to everyone for taking part, both our panelists and our attendees. I think it's been really inspirational to hear from all of you, and hopefully many people sitting at home hearing this will feel inspired to go out and start their own journey. I think the message for me is that, you know, the cup is always half full. Stay positive, stay focused, be prepared to be agile, and we will come out of this, and that in itself will be an opportunity. I just wanted to close by saying a few things. First of all, when we started our confidence ratings 4 weeks ago now, I thought it was just interesting to share that back at that time, just 5.7% of people were the most confident that their business would survive. Actually now today, when we've run that poll, it's now saying that 21% of you are actually confident that you will survive. So I think, you know, we've moved a long way in 4 weeks, which is fantastic. Actually 8.5% of people were the least confident, and actually now nobody is least confident. So everyone is feeling in a better place. So I think we can all take some comfort that we are on a journey, but it's a journey that's hopefully moving in the right direction. A couple of other things. I want to give a shout out to Chris's local support vouchers.com, which is launching on Monday, which sounds like a great initiative. I wouldn't be doing my job as a Mayor of London Leap board member if I didn't also say at this point that the Mayor of London did launch a Pay It Forward campaign, which is a London-wide campaign, a crowdfunding campaign that small businesses can go on and encourage their businesses to pay it forward by buying vouchers. There's many schemes out there, and I see no reason why we shouldn't all subscribe to all of them, because actually everyone's going to be looking in different places for this help. So, you know, let's take everything that we can get and utilize everything in that respect. I also want to say that as a new initiative for us at White Label, we have restarted the Big Breakfast, which is the speed networking event which we ran so successfully for around 8 years at IKEA. We have moved that now online. The first one of those is happening tomorrow at 8 AM. There are still a few spaces left, not many, but what is important is we keep communicating and actually talking to each other, trying to do business virtually. Log on to the Big Breakfast if you're interested in doing that. As I say, just go to the Big Breakfast website and you'll find it. We're back here next week with more insights. If you have a subject that you would like to hear about, you need advice on, or if you're sat there thinking, I've got some advice I could give, please do contact us, info@whitelabel.org.uk, and we will endeavour to bring that forward. This webinar, as all the others, are available on our YouTube channel White Label TV, and we will be circulating the full chat. There's a lot of information in the chat in terms of links and websites and advice, and we'll be circulating all of that to all of you. So for now, from all of us here, stay safe, stay well, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you very much.